time for your legal brief this morning. Since it is Small Business Wednesday, we are focusing on what you need to know to start a business of your own. Here to discuss the legal things you should know, Nicole from Sodoma Law. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about just when it comes to forming your own business, what do you need to get started, really?
It's important to think of it like this: formation and then protection. You work really hard to start a business. You have great ideas. You might have employees, so you have to first pick the right entity if you need to file an entity, and then make sure that you're protecting your idea and your employees and what you've worked so hard for.
How do you protect, how do you go about, I guess, protecting a company you are starting? Obviously, you probably need to get involved with contracts and that kind of thing.
Well, the first thing we want to do is make sure that you're selecting the right entity for the right reasons, because it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all. And the ones that we see so often with small businesses are limited liability companies and corporations that we would call S corporations based on the way they filed the entity, the election. So, and the things you want to consider are management, the taxability, and liability, of course.
And how difficult is it to legally start your own business and get it all started? I mean, how many hoops and hurdles? I imagine there are a lot to jump through when it comes to, starting a whole new business, I would think.
Well, in order to file the entity with the state, you would look at the North Carolina Secretary of State's website. They have got great facts for people who don't want to hire lawyers and for people who do want to hire lawyers. But there are things you should know before you make that leap into selecting the right entity based on what your goals are as a company. But once you start the company, you have to think about how you're going to protect your ideas. And so often we see clients coming to us after they've started the company and when they have the problems. So there are things that they should do in advance. From an agreement perspective, if you have investors or people who are putting money into the company, you're probably going to be looking at shareholder agreements or operating agreements. If you've got some investors or people who are also sharing in the ownership of the company, they might want to be paid first or paid at the same time. So those management considerations are going to be really important. Other agreements that we see so often, employment agreements, we need to look at employment manuals. And, one of the things when I started the firm back in 2008, one of the things that I really had not thought about were vendor agreements. You don't think that you can negotiate those vendor agreements, but you can, and they're really important details that you have to consider.
All right, Nicole, thanks so much for being here.